I'm one of the volunteers. I'm also one of the developer user group leaders in Denver. I am very excited today to introduce Ian Gotts, who is the founder and CEO of Elements.cloud. And today he'll be talking about 3 approaches to categorize and reduce technical debt, which is, of course, a very important topic for all of us, and I'm sure something familiar to most of us in the room. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So actually, this session is called Technical Debt is Killing Your Org. But if I'd come up with that topic, they probably wouldn't have selected me because it wasn't very upbeat. But it is actually killing your org, and I brought receipts. And we'll get into that in a moment. But these events wouldn't be possible without the sponsors and also all the volunteers who make this thing happen each year. So make sure you go and visit all the sponsor stands, go and find out what they do. Again, each year there are new sponsors coming through, some new products, some new new consulting firms. So make sure you spend time with them. So a little bit about me, very quickly, 3 numbers, written 10 books, spent 20 years as a Salesforce customer and a partner, spent 30 years on my soapbox talking about the importance of business analysis, tech debt, documentation, all the really fun stuff at parties. But again, this stuff, as we said at the beginning, is really important. The QR code there, that's a QR code that gets you to the deck. That QR code appears all the way through, so at some point in the future you go, actually, I wish I'd got the QR code. That will take you to the deck. Hopefully this will be useful for you to use this when you go back to the workplace to build the justification for why you need the time, the space to go and reduce the technical debt in your org. Because that's what this is all about. I know all of you would like to reduce that technical debt if you could, but there are lots of reasons why you don't, and most of that we'll talk about very quickly in terms of some of those approaches, if that makes sense. Okay? Quick show of hands. Who here are admins working for organizations? Fantastic. So the rest of you, I assume, are consultants or ISVs, okay? So you've all got the same problem. It's either somebody else's problem you're trying to fix or it's your problem you're trying to fix. So, So Forrester came up with this idea of Salesforce at scale dilemma, and I don't want you to read all the words. They are the words that are important. Innovation slows, flexibility evaporates, every change is killing your org. Now, this was back in 2017. I suggest it's not got any better. Okay? And it's this idea that actually the more you use Salesforce, the more the users need, the more you configure it, the more you add, the more difficult it gets to change, the more risky it gets to change. And eventually you build it up and up and up. And I haven't got the data for this, but empirically it feels like after 7 years, people are ready to throw away their org. Okay? That doesn't have to happen, but people kind of get to that point of, actually, there's so much there, let's just kill it and start again, which is a massive waste of investment. And often it's because you don't know what's in there. You're about to merge 2 orgs. You've no idea what's in the 2 of them, therefore you're going to throw them away and start again. In fact, we had one customer, they wanted to merge 2 orgs. We synchronized it and connected it. One of the orgs had the opportunity object account and lead had 256 record types. Okay? For those of you who are admins, I'm not, but there are about over 100 pick list fields. Many of them had hundreds of pick list values. So some of you know you have to allocate every single pick list value to a record type. There are over 5 million mappings. Okay? How many of those record types had data? 1. I have no idea why they did that. I wasn't there at the beginning. We were only there to see the results of the road accident. They wanted to merge it with another org, which is very simple. And we went like, you're trying to merge War and Peace and Dilbert. Don't do that. You need to simplify them first. But they had no idea. And I think that's part of the problem, is actually we have no idea how complex the org's got. You only see the bit you've got, and therefore it's very difficult to build a case to improve it or a case to change it. Just do one at a time, please. I did a presentation at New York World Tour, and my deck was connected to the next stage's clicker. That was just, not something you'd never naturally expect. Anyway, so I said I brought receipts. We synchronize Elements.cloud. One of the things we do is we synchronize orgs and analyze the metadata. We synchronize about 50,000 orgs a month. We analyze about 1.3 billion metadata items a month. So this is a subset of that, and we pulled it out. We didn't pull out the bad ones. We actually pulled out a subset to actually get the data. And 51% of all custom objects never get used. That's not counting managed packages. The ones that you've got feedback, you've had meetings to argue about what you're going to call it, you've had Slack messages about where we're going to put it, you've built it, you've tested it, clearly you haven't documented it, but all of that effort is wasted. Okay? And if we look at, say, just fields, 41% of custom fields on custom objects never get populated. Now, I realize some fields never get populated because that's valid. We strip those out. So these, again, are the ones that you decided you wanted to go and add. 43% of standard objects. It actually is a lot worse than that because there are so many standard objects. There are hundreds of standard objects. If you think about the core ones, it's about 80% when you start getting to some of the those core objects. And yeah, these are horrible numbers, and I'm not doing this just because it's a stand-up comedy routine. I think there's actually something deeper underneath this, which is the implication or the cost associated with it, because that's what we need to use to build the case for reducing it. So you look at that event, 80% of the fields never used, order, quote, and so on. So the numbers are really high. The other bit of data that came out of was actually how many fields you have on page layouts. This is average, okay? So everyone in the room obviously is better than this, and it's everybody else, I get that. But 150 fields on the opportunity page layout. There's nothing. There we go. If your page layout looks like a CVS receipt, your end users are going to do one thing, which is they're going to hit save and go, what's red? What do I have to select to get out of this page? Yes? The reason there's a big 7 there, the UX expert, I'm not one of them, but the UX expert said that 7 fields is the optimum number so you don't get cognitive overload. Yeah, okay. Pause for effect. But absolutely, I mean, we've now got features like we can hide them because of dynamic forms. There are ways we can try and simplify it for our end users. But again, the cost associated with these sorts of page layouts is, yeah, confused users, how much time do they waste? But it's also how much poor data is being pumped in there. Anyone got aspirations to do data cloud? Oh, we have actually a few, okay. If you don't get this shit together here, none of that will work. That's the one thing I can be certain of. We've just implemented Data Cloud. Unless you've got some good, rigorous processes and you understand how to do this really well, it's not like Data Cloud won't be successful. You won't even get Data Cloud to work. I may come back to that theme a little bit later. It seems a bit black. But the point is, this is just another leverage point on your organization to go, we shouldn't be doing Data Cloud until we've got some of these disciplines in place. Data Cloud requires you to have a very rigorous enterprise implementation approach to get it right. It's not Salesforce, let's click that, see what happens. If you do that, you will get nothing delivered at the end. Absolutely nothing. And you can't, if you get stuff wrong, you can't just change it. You have to unpick it and start again. Have I scared enough people? You can get massive benefits out of it, but you've got to approach it the right way. It's 80% planning, 20% delivery or build. God, I've sucked all the energy out of the room, haven't I? Sorry about that. So as I said, all of this comes out in a bunch of reports. There's a link, so at the very back of this deck is a link to a whole bunch of resources. So the things that I'm talking about, you can go and find those links. So things like the research series where all that data's come from, the UX, the technical debt, those levels. So you've got some evidence that you can take so you can build your business case for how you go and fix this. Is this making sense? It's not meant to be me shouting at you. If people have got questions, please don't leave them to the end. We can pick them up at any point. That, I think, is what the technical debt issue is. You guys start coding, I'll find out what they want. I know it's not as bad as that, but again, every joke is taking things to an extreme. But the point is, a lot of the time, we don't really bottom out exactly what the requirement is. There's an implementation lifecycle. These may not be your words, but I'm sure you can relate to these activities. At the top there, capture and validate requirements. Create a user story, assess what the change impact is, configure and build, test and deploy, deliver it into production, yes? All of you go around that change cycle. I think the problem is that that's the tech debt machine. You go from a rough idea of requirements straight into configure and build. And that's not because you're bad people. It's because you're not given the time to ask the questions. Someone came back from Dreamforce or watched a video and said, this can be done in 2 minutes. Why can't you just do it in 2 minutes? And you don't have the evidence to go, I've got to do decent analysis. I've got to make sure that this is really the field you need before I add it to another page layout and to all those permission sets and all the things which you then have to go and unpick. So we need to buy the time to be able to capture and validate requirements properly, which is things like map a business process. If someone says, I really need this, you either go back to a business process you've mapped, or you say, let's map out a business process, and let's see how you want this field to work, one of three things will happen. They'll either go, oh, we already do what I needed. Fantastic. No changes required. It was training. Number two is, yes, I understand what you need, but you don't need a field. You need a record type, or you need a something else, or you need a something else. We've understood, and if you've required that, you also need a report. Or actually, they have asked for what they really need, but there are other things that are associated with it. So building a process map, and also then an entity relationship diagram, so you can start to connect this, those are tools that you can use to say no by saying yes. Yes, let me help you. Let's sit down and draw a process and understand how you want Salesforce to work based on your business process and the things that are changed. And again, these are disciplines. If anyone's done the business analysis certification, who here's done that? Okay. Everybody else, I would suggest you do it. Even if you don't take the cert, go and look at some of the training associated with it, because the skills you need to do this stuff are all the BA skills. It's saying yes by saying no. It's understanding how to facilitate. So, okay, tell me how to map this process. Tell me what happens next. Show me where on this process diagram Salesforce hurts you. And how do we change that? Okay. And only once you've validated the requirements, then you should be creating user stories. Then you've got something which is a piece of work, and then you can understand the impact of the changes. Then you can understand, okay, this user story is going to be really easy. We'll group this together with other easy user stories. We get this delivered really quickly. This is horrible and complex. We need to take it through a different pipeline with integration test, system test, and all the way through to deployment. This will take longer, and this is why, because I've got some evidence, I've got some examples about this is really complicated. Stage, field, and opportunity, easy or hard? Hard, correct. In most organizations, you've got pick lists which kick off flows, which kick off Apex classes, stuff happens. Yeah? Oh, it's only a field, it can't be that hard. And that's what we're fighting against, I think, all the time in terms of orgs, which is going, it can't be that hard, I've watched a video, you could just change that, and we need the evidence to fight against that. So that was the down bit. Let's do the positive bit. That's about the sort of things I think we need to use, the tools we can use to start to get a handle on technical and get ahead of it. Okay? So I said 3 steps. Actually, it's 3 steps and 3 demands. The first step is you need to try and quantify it. You need to understand how bad it is in the areas that are important. If you've got one of those custom objects that's never being used, why fix it? It's never being used. Let's go and let's worry about the stuff that needs to be fixed and understand how complicated it is. So question, who here has got a metadata dictionary? Oh, that's not very good, is it? Okay? So by a metadata dictionary, I mean a way of managing and understanding all your metadata. Okay? Let me take you a different analogy. Who here's got an opportunity object? Well, that's strange. Why do you have an opportunity object? Because you want to understand how you manage your sales pipeline, and you understand if the sales aren't being closed, you've got a way of tracking them. That's all a metadata dictionary is around your change cycle. If you think about it like that, let's ask the question again. Who would like a metadata dictionary then? Okay, got it. Okay, so let me show you what one of those things looks like. There are a number of companies who create them. Ourselves, Elements.cloud, Metazoa, Sonar, Panaya. There are a few others, but if you look for metadata dictionary, there is a metadata API which allows you to pull all this metadata out of Salesforce and organize it in a structure which is easy to manage, easy to then start to do things like dependencies, which is where you're going to start to understand the technical debt. It's a place where you can document things, where you can start to list things. Excel spreadsheets are not metadata dictionaries. Okay? Well, I guess they are, but the problem is your org is changing so fast and there's so much data in there. We're looking at tens, if not hundreds of thousands of metadata items that are coming out. And therefore, at least understanding how to manage that is your first step to understanding how to manage technical debt. So that's what one could look like. You've got, objects, and then underneath objects, you've got custom metadata, and it's a tree structure. So you need some sort of structure here. You've got all these custom objects. Custom objects have got fields. Fields have got pick list values. So all of the metadata, whether it's Apex classes or flows or all of your process builder workflows or all your permission sets and your profiles, all of those things are metadata which can be stuck into a dictionary, and then a lot of the stuff on the right-hand side you can either analyze and interpret, as in field analysis, or it will come straight off the API. This will give you a far better view of what the issues are than trying to wade through setup. You don't stand a chance trying to wade through setup and then build a spreadsheet, and by the time you finish building it, it's now out of date. Okay? That's why Salesforce built the metadata API. Why they didn't build a product like us, no idea. Happy days, we're building that. But it's something which is, if you're building an enterprise application, this stuff is critical. Doesn't have to be us, has to be somebody though. But what you can do once you've got that is you can then build a dependency tree. So you can say the field stage is connected to 17 flows, and those 17 flows are connected to and connected to and connected to. This is the picture when someone goes, it can't be that hard to change. You say, there are 398 dependencies. We've got two options. We can do the make a change, or you can give me the time to analyze it properly, and I can say, which of those, 17 flows actually need to be changed if you want me to go and change that pick list value. This is the heart, I think, of the technical debt piece, which is understanding the cost or the implications of it. Blank faces or lots of nods? Okay. So now we need to understand how we actually cost that. So let's get to the next thing. If you've got all this metadata, AI can help you. Okay? I think AI it's not had a bad rap, but actually we're looking in the wrong place to make sure AI really works. So what does AI need? It needs really good data. Metadata is really good. It's 100% accurate. You may not like what it says, but it is 100% representation of your org. Okay? AI is not very good at coming out with 100% accurate results, but you kind of don't need really good results. This is like an intern. Just go back and tell me where I should focus. Okay? Think of AI as the intern. You're not expecting the intern to come back and go, I've done all the work, the answer's completely perfect, you don't need to worry about it. AI is an intern where you look at it and go, thank you, you've given me a steer, maybe I didn't ask the question properly, let me ask the question a different way, come back with some different results. Okay, now I've got a good understanding about what we need to do. So we've applied AI to some of this metadata. Don't worry about the pretty graph, but understand what I did. One of the prompts, again, it's one of the links in the resource you'll find later. It's a prompt you can use. By the way, the prompt's about that long. Okay? It's not 3 lines. It's fairly in-depth. What we asked it to do was say, go and have a look at every field in an object X, look at all the dependencies on that field, all the things which are related, and then using this little table, based on the type of thing that's dependent, so if a validation rule is connected, give it 1 point. If it's a report, give it 0 points. If it's a flow, give it 3 points, and add those up for every dependency. At the same time, also calculate how long we think it takes to analyze all those things. So we'll say validation rule takes 2 minutes, flow takes 10 minutes, and just build all those up and add them all up, and then group them by how well populated those fields are. Okay? How long would an intern take to do that? Okay? Days. They wouldn't. They'd probably quit before they actually got to the end of the job. But AI does a really good job. Is it right? Pretty much. But the point, that's good enough. That tells me the value field is a monster. It's got a score of 175. If I look at it, it probably says it takes 3 hours to analyze. Versus down at this end, so if I'm worried about changing stuff, this is the scary end. Down here are the fields that don't seem to be used. These are the ones I might need to be able to delete. By the way, you shouldn't just delete empty fields. I can think of at least 5 reasons why you shouldn't delete a field because it has no data. You need to understand, is it connected to things? You need to know why that got created. But again, if you're looking for fields to delete, it's at this end. So again, your intern, AI, using all this data, has given you a good place to go, this is where I should focus. This is the stuff that's killing us. I need to do some more technical debt reduction. I need to think about better descriptions. I need to do some other things around here. But look, it's going to take me quite a lot of effort. If you want me to do anything, this is the stage field. Okay? Horrible. But again, it's giving you some ammunition to go back and go, it's going to take me longer than 10 minutes to go and fix this. If you want me to actually do any work around the opportunity object, around these fields, I need to buy the time to do this properly. Okay? Bosch, big customer of ours. He did the product manager of Bosch. 4 years into an implementation, they're re-implementing Salesforce. Okay? They kind of started in the wrong direction. They want to have another go at it. But it's a great video because he talks about the core principles about how they're going to implement. But relevant to this conversation, he said, we allocate 10% of every sprint to tech debt reduction. Okay? I think Salesforce talk about a similar sort of number. Okay? But again, it's trying to build the time to go and do this stuff properly. So that second point is you need to try and assess the cost. So you can then build a case to go, I need to fix this, it's going to take this long, this is going to slow us down in the future if we don't do it. If I go back to the data cloud conversation, if you've got that level of technical debt and you haven't got a metadata dictionary and you haven't got a decent implementation process that's rigorous, do not start data cloud. If you've learned nothing else today, that's that one sentence will be helpful, despite what the AE is telling you. Yeah, how can you tell when an AE is lying? When their lips move. Absolutely. Harsh? Fair. I've been around 20 years, I've been 30 years in sales. We used to say I was an Accenture partner. They said, how can you tell when a partner's lying when their lips move? But the point is, data cloud is achievable if you have the right disciplines in place and you have the right approach in place and you've got the management support to do it. We've implemented it internally, we've got some great results out of it, but we have those things in place. Don't go into this without actually having some of the things in place to make sure you can deliver it. The data cloud certification, I'm off topic here now, but the data cloud certification is literally 10% of the project. 10%. 90% of the project is everything else. Planning, cross-collaboration, getting data out, data modeling, data analysis, data volumetrics, building a business case, designing, architecture diagrams, metadata dictionaries. And once you've done all that, build a user story, and then it's really simple. Take every one of those actions and build it out in data cloud. You're done. But all of those other things have to happen first, because if you don't get them right, you can't unpick it. Have I scared enough people? Don't be scared. Just be aware of what it actually takes to implement data cloud, and then go in with your eyes open and with the right management support behind you, which is what this is all about. Okay. I talked about the cost of technical debt. Just a little concept here. Think about different levels of technical debt. Credit card levels of interest, bank loan, mortgage, or parent loan. Again, you need to allocate, okay, what sort of technical debt is it? If we're dealing with the stage field, which is getting changed all the time and it's mission critical, I suggest that is credit card level of interest. It's costing us money. Every time we make a change, stuff breaks, or it takes us 5x the time it ought to go and do the analysis. We've got to fix this now. Build this into this sprint. Bank loan interest, it's not going to affect us now, but we know we ought to fix it if we bump into it. But we're not going to launch a project now. This stuff, we're not changing it, doesn't work. I'm not going to go back and fix technical debt in process builder workflows. Okay? Maybe you need to, maybe a bit of documentation, but you're not going to go back and refactor them. But when you look at them, if you've got a project, you might go, actually, absolutely, I need to fix a process builder workflow because I need to refactor it and turn it into a flow. Salesforce forces technical debt on us 3 times a year. Yeah. It's not always our fault. It wasn't because we took shortcuts. Sometimes the business moves on. Sometimes Salesforce implemented something which we've already built, and we need to go and change that. It's not always us taking shortcuts or us not knowing. And therefore, you need to try and assess, okay, how expensive is this to us, and how much do we want to, and how important is it to change it? Not all technical debt is equal. Stop the Bleeding. Great book by a guy called Adam May. He was a doctor. Nothing to do with Salesforce, nothing to do with, but it's actually just a very amusing book. He was a doctor and then turned into a screenwriter for comedian. He said, eventually the bleeding stops. Okay? But we've got to stop the bleeding. We've got to get an implementation lifecycle where we're not putting more technical debt in. We're not loading more stuff in on top of the old stuff. We've got to try and break this pattern. Otherwise, you'll all be in the room here 2 years' time going, it's horrible, isn't it? Yeah, I know. But you need to try and get ahead of this. And the way to do it is you need to get a decent implementation lifecycle. So do you remember I talked about that? We need to actually go around that properly. So who here has got a documented implementation lifecycle? If I walked into your org tomorrow and you said, right, you're the new person, the new admin, and you said, this is the process we follow, how many of you have got one of those? Oh, some of you. Fantastic. Good. Okay, so if you're sitting in the room and you've got one of those, what's the problem? You're not able to follow it, or you're inheriting things from previous orgs? Inheriting?
Inheriting in time.
Inheriting over time, okay. So you've got a process where at least you're now starting to try and fix some of that. Good, okay? So I think this is where it starts, which is this stuff we can do, I get that. The problem's at the top there, which is buying enough time to do the 5 whys, to ask the questions, the softer skills. I know when there's someone senior goes, I have to have this field, and you've got to be able to go, yeah, of course. Let's just understand how we might implement that. Or you can have the field, but I won't put it on a page layout. Technical debt you can't see doesn't hurt you necessarily. I mean, so back to building the cost picture. Don't think of the cost of your cost necessarily, because you're really cheap compared with. Sorry about that. Yeah, you are really, but relative your day rate relative to the cost of 10 sales reps or 400 service agents who are struggling through pages and putting in bad data. That's, I think, where we should be looking in terms of where you're going to find that cost benefit. Simple spreadsheet. This page layout takes a rep 10 minutes to go through or 2 minutes to go through. I then have to spend 5 minutes fixing all the data at the back end, and we've got 100 of those, and they're doing that 3 times a week. The cost of that is, and by the way, don't have any aspirations about doing data cloud and AI because we're not ready. That is the true cost of technical debt, not the fact that you're going to take a little bit longer to do stuff. I know it's painful for you, and I know there is a cost associated with it, but there are way bigger costs that you can look for. Technical debt stuff, as in poor data, ends up in dashboards, so your senior execs are making bad decisions. Massive cost associated with that, and they understand that. So we need to frame the cost of technical debt in numbers that they will understand, so you can build a business case to go, see, that's why I need another 10 minutes or another 2 days to do this properly. And my suggestion is, if this is new to you, pick a really low risk, low political case. Don't go after like quote to cash as the first one. Pick some places which are small where you can prove the benefits, measure what it was before, measure afterwards, and go, look, this is what we saved. Now let me apply that again and again to bigger and bigger things. I think this is a lot more, it's more political than anything else. It's trying to navigate you around this. The technical side of it, I think, is not that difficult. I think the difficult bit is having the time to do the technical bit. I'd agree. Yes? The other thing is actually documentation in all this. You generate quite a lot of technical debt due to documentation, a lack of documentation. Let me explain what I mean by that. You've created a field called industry. I don't understand how you use it. This team over here want a field called industry, so they go, not sure how I use that. We'll call it industry 1. Okay? Yes, you know where this is going, don't you? Because you didn't write down what that field was used, not for, but why they created it. I'll pick that up in a moment. And we've got situations that we sync opportunity object 1, opportunity object 2. Think about trying to do a forecast roll-up over 3 custom objects. Just because we ran out of fields on opportunity, and then we ran out of fields on opportunity object 1. Frightening. The thing about descriptions, about why that's a documentation issue, and again, it's part of this, which is somewhere around here and up there, you need to start documenting the changes you make. You need to document why the field exists, why this flow works, not what it does. You've got a field called, I know, NDA, and you type in the description field, it's the NDA field. I kind of got that. It's in the label, it's on the, yeah. Why have we got an NDA field? We've got it because finance signed a contract. We've got it because marketing cannot use this customer without reading the NDA in any of our marketing. That's the why. I'd suggest lots of your fields, if you've got documentation, have got what, not why, which isn't very helpful. And if it's a what, I kind of understand that, so I just go, it doesn't help me. I'll go and create another one. Again, back to the list of things in the resources. We wrote a prompt for you to evaluate all your descriptions. So I went and asked OpenAI, what sentence would be a why versus a what? And it gave me a bunch of criteria. You can run it against all your descriptions. It will tell you whether it's a why, a what, or whether it's blank. But it can also tell you which are the most important fields based on a page layout. So where do you focus? I've got a bunch of fields here. Let's focus on the ones that have got pick list values, the ones that have got validation rules, the ones that matter if they get it wrong. So again, it's that intern just going, oh, okay, yeah, I can help you. I can look at all the descriptions. I can tell you which ones are most important. Now I know where to focus in terms of improving my help. And that then also helps improve data quality, and it rolls on. So I think these are all relatively simple things you can do. Just don't bite off too big a thing, and then try and implement some of these principles around this cycle just once and go, look, measure the beginning, measure the end. Wow, this worked. Look at the success we got. Right, give me more time. Give me more time for the next one. So you can then start to estimate how long it really takes to make a change. Because most people say a change takes 3 months because you've got no measure of how long a change takes, so you have to say 3 months because the longest one takes 3 months. If you could then go, this is a short change, I can get this in next week, this is going to take 3 months, and then bring the receipts, this is why, then you've got a reasonable case for going, okay, give me the time to do this properly. Thoughts, questions? End users need to operate more like consultants.
User story requirements, user stories, level of effort, do we do it or not?
Yeah, that's a great point. Right? So should we do it or not? We went through this cycle for one of our changes internally. Obviously, we use Salesforce internally. We did all the analysis. The sales team said they wanted these things. We went through, we validated the requirements. We looked at the process map. We looked at the ERD. We wrote the user stories. We evaluated and said, this will take 3 people 6 weeks. And the sales team said, we don't want it then. Do other stuff. Do stuff that's more important to us. So we didn't build it. And you go, what a waste of analysis time. No, you're looking at the wrong way. That was a really good way of saving a bunch of development time, which wasn't the right priority. The moment you have those conversations, you're at a different level of sophistication. Do you still want to do this now I've understood how long it takes? Rather than, you said you wanted it, I put it in, why are you not using it? Because there were more important things to do. So I think there's a level of just reframing the way we go around this. You're going to spend a lot more time on that bit than that bit. Drag and drop's easy. And I think what's happening is, something like Data Cloud is going to, I keep on going on about it, but Data Cloud is going to force this into organizations. Data Cloud is how we should have implemented, the disciplines that Data Cloud is forcing on us are the ones we should have applied to implementing Salesforce. It's just let us take shortcuts. And we're now paying the price. Internally, we implemented, I kind of need to get the numbers right, 377 releases this year in a calendar year inside our own org. How many rollbacks? 0. Not me. They followed a process. And every time they release, they go back and go, could we improve that? Could we improve that? Could we improve that? If it's not written down, you can't improve anything because you've got nothing to build on. People say to me, what's the first process I should map in? This one. It's yours. You own it. You don't have to ask sales about their process. Do this one. Get this one right. And go around that cycle and constantly improve it, and constantly improve it, and constantly improve it. And then go, that didn't work. Why? Let's change that. Okay. And go around rev cycles of that. It's not hard. Well, it's easy because it's possible to do. I don't suggest it's easy in your organizations with the politics and everything that goes around that. What I'm trying to do is give you some of the evidence and the angles that you can take to be able to make this achievable for you. And it's going to be hard to start with because there will be a lot of doubt, and this isn't going to work, and why am I wasting time, and just build it. But pick some things where there's less pressure on that. Don't pick CPQ. As a clue. What does CPQ stand for? Causes people to quit. That was it. So on that note, I said there's a bunch of resources there. There's a QR code, the reports, the Bosch video, some stuff around metadata, some things about metadata dictionaries, a whole bunch of stuff, and then all the AI prompts I talked about, all there. About 5 or so minutes for questions. Happy to take any questions, pretty much about anything. Who's got the first question? So the question was the AI stuff that I put up there. One of the examples was fields. We had this thing called prompt a week, and we created lots of different prompts, which we could then send out, and then people could then use those and go, okay, based on what you've now done, how can I iterate off the back of that? So yeah, you could do it for flows if you've got the right data. There's a lot of data comes off the back of a flow, so you've got to try and parse that. But the principles about these AI prompts that we created were ones so you could take them and then go, ooh, based on my org or based on the data I've got, what could I do? Trying to open people's minds to what's possible. People tend to have quite a narrow focus on AI. It will only do this. People aren't thinking about metadata. They're not thinking like, what would I give an intern to do which would be really helpful? Could AI do that for me? So did that answer the question? Yes. So I said there are about 4 or 5 prompts. They're all blogs. The prompts are quite long. Copy, paste them, see if they work for you, change them, make them work for you. We're just trying to open people's minds to what's possible, particularly when you've got metadata and there's so much you can do with that. Other questions? Oh, sorry, on the back there. Have you got a bigger voice? Oh, got a mic. I'm sorry. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do I need this now? You're so close. So you had talked about process mapping, and so my organization is going through an enterprise-wide process mapping because a lot of departments are duplicating efforts because we're bringing everything into Salesforce. Do you recommend the process mapping from a holistic 360 from the entire org and then dial down to each department? Or wrong place, wrong time, wrong question?
Oh, perfect question. Okay, so the question was, if we're going to do process mapping, should we start top down? So first of all, there's a standard called UPN, Universal Process Notation, which Salesforce uses. The principle is it's hierarchical top down. Very simple, 8 or 10 boxes, drill down, drill down. I would advocate to start as high as you can. It may be departmental level, but certainly don't start at the bottom and then try and pull all the bits upwards, because that's like you've got a jigsaw puzzle with no box and you've no idea how they fit together. So absolutely start as high as you can. And what's interesting about the top-down approach is that if you've got, say, eight boxes and you've got input, line, activity starts with a verb, output, line, when you drill down to the next level of detail, you've automatically got the scope of the next diagram defined because it was the input and the output of those boxes. And it works really well, and we've seen it used in like 20-odd years. Yeah, probably that long, actually. And, I mean, I think of one client, 10,000 diagrams in their overall process map. And you go, that's mad. No, they were a major bank. They had retail banking, investment banking, but nobody cared because they were only looking at their bit. So this UPN approach, so start as high as you can, and you need the sponsor of that end-to-end to be in the room, and you need all the people involved to get from the first to the end. And then as you drill down to lower levels of detail, you'll end up with more junior people and fewer people. So that first workshop could take half a day or a day to do. I remember facilitating a workshop just like that. Big organization. It was very clear at the end of the first day that there were 2 people in the room who had exactly the same job with teams, different titles. And at lunchtime, I went to the CEO and said, how are you going to handle it? He said, well, you're the consultant. Okay, fine. But yeah, after 2 weeks, they made one set redundant. That sounds quite negative. Another big workshop we did for a massive, great engineering construction firm, EPC, Engineering, Procurement, Construction. We got all the senior people in the room. A couple of stories from that. One is the return on investment that we drove out because of that process mapping, $187,000 a day. Okay? And a couple of the guys in the audience said, this is the most valuable. I've been here 30 years. It's the most valuable day I've ever had because I've actually the first time I've ever understood what the handoffs are between the two people. Don't think about the process step. Think about the lines between the boxes. You know what you do, but you don't know what the handoff is. So, quick question: what's a lead? What's a qualified lead? Okay.
Something more than a business card in a fishbowl.
Well, there you go. But if you're marketing, a lead is I managed to scan you as you came past my stand. A qualified lead to someone in sales is they're about to place a purchase order. You spend more time in process mapping arguing about the lines than you do about the activities. Is there anything on there? I don't think there's anything on that list about process mapping, but if you catch me afterwards, I'll send you something. There was another question over there. Then on.
I don't know, maybe people can't hear me, you don't need a microphone.
There you go. They never can. There you go.
For those of us, different levels of experience, expertise, any recommendations when you're walking into the room and someone says, I don't have time for that, you don't have time to process map?
That's a great question. So the question really is, someone says, we haven't got time for that, can we just go and build it? And I think you have to do the just humor me, this won't take very long, and just go, okay, I can't. And then you start asking the questions, which is, well, why do you need this, and how's that going to work, and how's that going to work? And you go, do you know what? It would have been quicker. Can we just do a process map? It's business improv. You're going to have to do a little bit of that, which is going, trust me, let's just do a little bit, let's see where it goes. I think if you acquiesce and just go, all right, I'll build it, then it's never going to get better. It's never going to get better. Maybe you don't do that, but you save that fight for a little bit later. But then you go back to them and go, I couldn't answer all these questions. So you had that conversation, okay, I'll see what I can do, come back with a bunch more questions, go, do you know what, I've got so many more questions. Could we just do a quick process map and just ease your way into it? The other one is you need your senior execs to understand the importance of business process mapping. Okay? If your organization hates it, never cares about it, will never do it, there's only one solution: leave. I'm sorry, but there is. Because otherwise, you're fighting a losing battle there. There's a question there. How are we doing for time?
I have plenty for you, Ian, but I'll stick to 2. Are you hiring? And based on your, you do a lot of talks. I follow you on LinkedIn. We chatted last night. Okay. And your time in the ecosystem, where do you see the Salesforce ecosystem going? What challenges, besides the obvious? I know everyone's beating the data cloud drum. What is your overall perspective of the ecosystem?
Okay. This has got to be safe harbor. Not that I work for Salesforce. Okay, so this is my perspective. Couple of things. Clearly, data cloud is the future. It may not be your future now, but in one, so I'll go to the front rather than see. Data cloud is clearly the future for Salesforce. They are 1,000% committed to making this happen. So I don't think you need to implement data cloud now, but you at least need to understand the principles and make sure it's on your roadmap of the skills you build. You don't need to be a data cloud consultant necessarily, but at least understanding the implications of what it means. That's the first thing. I think it's a massive bet because it's consumption-based pricing. So it means they're only successful when customers are using the credits. So it is a very big bet for Salesforce that they're making. That's the first thing. The other thing I think is Salesforce is moving up market. It's moving to bigger enterprise customers. If you're a non-profit or an SMB, they kind of don't care. Yeah?
Sorry, I work for Salesforce. I work with nonprofits.
Okay? But, okay, the levels of support and the levels of, Salesforce is, it's an expensive product if you don't have a sophisticated use case. Let me phrase it that way. It needs to be configured. If you're a large non-profit, but if you're relatively small or you're a small SMB, there's the set of skills that you will now need as we move into data cloud. Some eventually will get beyond you, I would suggest. That's where I'm seeing it going. Okay? I said this was safe harbor, so this is my perspective on where they're going. I have no insights into what happens in the boardroom. This is just a perspective answering a question, which is I see Salesforce focusing more and more on the enterprise customers. They're looking at how they become a bigger enterprise play, which is where data cloud is coming from. It requires more and more sophisticated skills. I also see that the role of accidental and solo admins, it'll be more and more teams. So there'll be specializations. So if you're a solo admin, that's a really, really hard place to be. Think how many hats you need to wear as a solo admin. Okay? Your BA, your architect, your security, your dev, and I think as organizations grow, there's a great website called FoundHQ where they start to look at the structure of Salesforce teams inside customers. I know they're big customers, but you can start to see these teams building. Another trend, center of excellence, you'll start seeing coming out more and more. Again, it's about playing as a team. There will not be a accidental data cloud admin, period. Okay? There won't be any solo data cloud admins. You can't do it that way. So I think there's a move there to bigger projects, more strategic projects, requiring a lot more disciplines, a lot more of these implementation skills, I would suggest. Anyone from Salesforce apart? I said they don't care about non-profits. I don't think Salesforce is geared up to support a slew of small non-profits. I mean, it's interesting. I did a Center of Excellence roundtable just recently for non-profits, and there were some non-profits there, really sophisticated. They got it, and they were fantastic. But if you're there we're a non-profit, we've got 10 free licenses, and we found a volunteer who could kind of do stuff, that's not where Salesforce is going. That's really hard. Hopefully that answered the question. I think we're out of time. So to summarize, tech debt is killing your org. It doesn't have to. I think with some of the principles here, you can build a business case to start to make some changes. I'm applauding you on that journey. Happy to connect on LinkedIn, connect through email, and I'm putting blogs out all the time around this sort of content. But if there's stuff you go, I really need a bit of content like that, I understand you could have said it, and I'm the stranger with the briefcase, and they'll believe me, and they won't believe you. Happy to write that, so you've got that evidence. So thank you.